Hello, everyone, and good evening. This is Aaron, and I'm here the custodian here to talk a little bit about Xamarin Forms and master detail, um, and tabs and forms, and really with Xamarin and talking about like there's some restrictions there. So this video is not a training video. It's not something where if you're not interested in talking about master detail or you're not talking about tabs, then this video is a complete waste of your time. Just turn it off and don't watch it. In fact, this video is literally being made for a couple people I've had a conversation with on Twitter where I kind of expressed that I feel that there's a limitation that I don't think should exist. And then I wanted to show that by writing some code to show that this is what I thought the behavior should be, or I hope that the behavior could be in the future. And, I don't know if that change needs to be done in like, maybe it's in shell, shell provides this kind of functionality that I feel it's missing in forms, or is that kind of backported to the current implementation master detail page and tab page? It's a conversation to have, but if you don't express the concern that it's a missing piece of functionality, then Microsoft can't really fix it, right? If they don't know about it or they don't feel like the user base needs it, then why would they even code a fix for it? So let's talk about it. I work as a tech lead for a very large company. It's you can go on Twitter and find out. I work for EY. They're a big accounting firm. And these opinions are my own. They're not the opinions of my employer, but I help build very large mobile applications for this company. We do both tablet and phone applications. We have several. They're enterprise based. And the application most popular for our employees is Microsoft Outlook. I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? Email. And so what I have loaded here on the screen that you're looking at right now is my Microsoft Outlook. Now, of course, I don't have my work email open. This is my personal. And you have multiple accounts set up in Outlook, and it's pretty cool about that. But what I want to show you is the experience that our end users have gotten used to. And this is on an iPhone. We have a conversation about Android, but it's the same concept. Now, Outlook is written as a native, at least when they bought, Microsoft did not write Outlook. It was another company that made the product, and then Microsoft bought that company and then reskinned it into Outlook. When I first checked, there was no doubt that this is a native application on both Android and iOS. So this is written in, I'm going to guess, partially Swift, partially Cocoa on iOS, and over in Android, probably in Java. I don't think they've moved over to Kotlin yet. But if we look at a phone here, this is running on an iPhone, one of the latest XR Maxes. You'll see here that I have my email. I can scroll it. This all look pretty great. It's pretty easy. Now, if I flip my phone from portrait to landscape, you'll see that instantly we get a master detail experience. Where on the left-hand side of the screen, here's all my email messages. When I click, it comes over to the right side. And this is just by flipping my phone. Now, of course, I'm using QuickTime to show this, so it looks a little kind of weird when I swap back and forth. But you can easily see this is the native experience of master detail in any application. Now, at the bottom tabs, you'll see that instantly we have the options for email, the options for search, and the option for calendar. Now, this is pretty cool that master detail is embedded in only to one of the tabs. And this all works. Navigation's working here, you can see. And technically speaking, they even offer a hover menu that pops open. And that's important to kind of denote. This is the phone experience. So we have master detail inside of a tab with a hover over menu as an option on phone. And this is all just working. And what I want to note is on the phone right now, the experience is that master is the mailbox. Okay? When you click on the message, there's note that this is detail. Well, how do I know this? Well, let's go over to the iPad and take a look at that now. I happen to have an iPad kind of plugged in. Oop, set my phone down here. So let's record the iPad now. So I'm going to switch over to my iPad. I do have an iPad sitting right next to me here also. I'm going to open that up, and that should display. We can see here. Oh, it needs... Let me go ahead and do that real quick. And iPad's open. One of my developer devices here. Let's go ahead and go into Outlook here. On the iPad, and take a look at the experience. We'll see here that we have a very similar what we talked about earlier here. We have master detail again. On master, we have the option for your email messages, and if I click on that, the message displays over in detail. On top of that, we do have the ability to hit the C in the upper hand corner that stands for my email address. You can see here that literally all my mail accounts are set up, and this is a hover over menu that is supported. So, and you can see down here at the tabs also, we have search as an option for a tab which is not using master detail, and calendar which is not using master detail. This is probably some kind of grid control. My guess is this UI collection view in iOS. But if we go back to the mail, you can see here we have 3 tabs: master detail in the mail tab, with a master set for the mailbox, detail set for the message that you're selecting, and the ability to have a hover over menu. And all this is just built in. Why can't you do all this in Xamarin Forms? Why can't I build an application with these options without a lot of work? Literally, it's the whole theory in the .NET world of, they said for years, the Visual Studio team was never writing in .NET back in when .NET first came out. And so it was like this whole, you got to eat your own dog food kind of thing. That's a phrase that, has come around in the past. And I would love the ability to build applications to that quality with built-in stuff in Xamarin Forms without doing a bunch of custom renderers and cut myself 1,000 times. So I've got some code open here. Let's take a look. And all this code's available on GitHub. There'll be a link in the descriptions here. You can go and get the repo of both of these projects, and you can go kind of look at the code to see what I'm talking about here. I have I went through a brand new project in iOS for setting up a master detail project for Xamarin for iOS specifically. And I have not changed hardly any code whatsoever. I'll show you in a second what the code I did change. I'm just going to debug it to show you the out-of-box experience if I were to write this in iOS native. So here's an iPhone XR 12.2 running one of the latest versions. You'll see here that out-of-the-box detail is what shows. And I have to hit back in order to get master. And of course, I can then use master. I can create a record here, and I can click on it, and I go back to detail and see the results. But when I start the application, I'll just tombstone it again, close it completely to kill it, and then I'll bring it back open. You'll see here easily I'm going to detail by default. But if we look at Outlook, that was master by default. That's what opened up by default. Now, the master detail API supports this out of the box. You just have to implement a couple of small pieces of code to have this so that master will show up by default. And what is that code you're talking about, Aaron? That magical code that we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and tombstone this in the simulator again. I'm going to kind of kill it, make sure it's there. And I'm going to also kill the application altogether. Sometimes it doesn't always copy over when you make changes, and that's really frustrating. So over here, I'm in my master view controller, and this is, out of the box, just came. You can see it's implementing on master side. This is a UI table view controller. That's what's giving us our list at the front. I added in the interface for UI split view controller delegate. And the method you want to override here is this one right here. It's collapse second view controller. And the theory is, I'm going to go ahead and on-comment this out. So I'm going to toggle live comments. Is that what you're presented with is the UI split view controller that is currently being rendered, the secondary view, and the primary view, and you're asked to make a decision: should you collapse the secondary view controller so that the first view controller is the one that shows? And so if you answer true, you're saying, I don't want the second view controller, which is detail. I want the primary view controller, which is master. And if you answer false, you get the default behavior. So I'm going to just change this one thing right here to say to return true. So basically, I've so far one line of code to implement the interface, basically override or provide the delegate. It's not an override because we're subscribing to the delegate here. I should also explain that. There's a line of code here that in view to load that I take the UI split view controller that I currently have control of, and I'm going to say for the delegate, I'm the delegate of this. And then I implement the interface for the delegate to say, I am a delegate. If you don't implement the interface and you try to set yourself to the delegate, this will fail because you haven't implemented the interface. So then all I have to do is implement one of the interface methods, this one right here, set it to true, and I should have the experience on phone that's very similar to Microsoft Outlook. The experience that I was really kind of talking about that I want to see, which is where master comes up by default. And I can work with the master, and I can click here, and I can go to detail, and there we are. Very simple. This is the experience that now I can build applications in master detail and have it very similar to my experience that I had in Microsoft Outlook and also in native. So let's go ahead and take a look in Xamarin Forms what happens on the box then. So I'm going to go ahead and close the solution out. And in the same folder of the GitHub project, I have this master detail tabs. And so let's go kind of look at this. You'll see that here's a complete forms project. To start out with, this is implementing a basically skeleton clone of Outlook. No, it's not the world's best UI. That's not the goal of this. I put it together in less than an hour because I just wanted to prove a point. Okay, and that was important to not spend a huge amount of time on this because I should be writing other pieces of code versus just kind of ranting about this missing functionality in master detail. let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we have our first view that's going to come in is a tab root. And then just like in Microsoft Outlook, we have 3 tabs inside the application. And we can see here, we have our master detail right here. And if we kind of go through and look at it, we'll see that our second tab, because this is a tab page, our second tab is just a navigation page, which would be in iOS land, convert over to navigation, UI navigation controller. And you can see here I have a search that view that I'm actually bringing in, and that's a page. And then my third one, I'm also wrapping it in a navigation page, and this is my calendar view. So I have 3. Basically, I have mail, search, and calendar, just like in Outlook. And then over in master detail land here for mail, I have mail view set for the master, and detail I have the message view. Now, I would love to have a property on here that says, hey, in master detail, go through and make it so that when you're on phone, to collapse the secondary view controller, just like we talked about here, and have that also work in Android. Now, Android has other problems because they use the fly-out navigation, not the default. Now, I'm going to call out that I looked through the class documentation for master detail to see what's option. This does not work, okay? So the very first thing I saw, okay, is presented. And you can see here, get or set value indicates whether or not the visual elements is presented by master properties presented to the user. If you set this to true, what will happen is the hamburger menu will fly out and you'll get a partial view of master when it opens up in phone. But that's not the experience we're looking for, and that's not what happens in Outlook. So let's show that and see what happens. So let's start with a tablet. I'm going to go in and just set a simulator because it's the easiest way to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and set this iPad Pro as my simulator. I'm going to build this application out in the simulator. And we'll take a look at what it looks like on tablet. Because in tablet, when coded, it looks great. And it looks exactly how I would expect it to want to run on a tablet. So you can see here, here's my application running. Here's my mail tab. Of course, I don't have any data set in here, but you can see in the mail tab, I have the grid view of the mail messages over here and nothing over here, but this would be where the detail is. And if I click new, you can even bring up a modal that actually, this is where you write your new message. So we know that that's working in navigation. If we go over to search, we see here, this is not a master detail. It's just a search pane. Of course, I don't have any results over here or anything like that. These are just placeholders. And then calendar is the same thing. And I also wanted to show that, you know, you could like click to do navigation. And you can see this is obviously wrapped in a navigation controller. So we have core functionality here, as you can see here, that this seems to be working just fine on tablet. And this is what the users would want and experience, because this is what the Outlook email client provides. So if I'm building a native enterprise application, I want that same functionality. I want to provide that same user experience because that's what the users are trained on. They're trained on, hey, if they tilt their phone, they're going to need master detail. So let's take a look at this. A tablet, this seems to be working exactly how I wanted it to work. So let's go ahead and run this on phone now. And let's go see what that experience is. So I'm going to select the top phone here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit this run and make sure we have the simulator back up. You'll see here we're pushing a new build out to it. And we'll see that to start out with, this is not the grid view for a mailbox. No, it's not. Because when you collapse to master detail down inside of Forms, it becomes part of the hamburger menu flyout, which quite honestly, a lot of applications don't even have hamburger menus anymore. That's great for Android, but it's not a default pattern in iOS by any means anymore. Even Facebook, you only use it for like their chat, who's online for chat now. It's definitely been it's an opinionated opinion on this, but of course that's what this video is all about. But I don't think that it should be this. It should be bring full screen. It should be master. There should be an option to bring master out first, and then have this as optional way of it to run. So you see here, this is not what the users are used to, and this is not what they want. They want to be able to see their mail messages first and then click into them. But I have no ability to set that. But you'll see here, search tends to work just fine. Well, of course, we got some kind of rendering issue here with the stack layout where it's not doing expand properly, and you know our navigation controller is working over here, so that's good. But you can see here, this is not the default behavior that we want. And if we click the new button, we see the modal seems to be working also. So for the most part, this seems to be okay, minus the fact that you don't have the ability to move master over. Now, I talked about that option that I saw earlier. So, you know, because usually you're implementing an API, like for Xamarin Forms, you want to just go read the documentation and say what's available. And so that's what I did. I went to master detail page, went and looked at this and said, hey, look, is presented. And that sounds like it looked promising at first. I'm like, okay, maybe they just renamed it because they do that from time to time. And this is what you have to do in order to make this work. But it doesn't work the way that you want it to work. And I'm going to say true because I tested this before, obviously, I recorded the video. And if we go here and we rerun it again, what will end up happening is that by default, master will just be pushed out. But it's still going to be in a fly-out navigation kind of thing where it's more of a hamburger menu than it is the mailbox. You can see here, all it's really done is here's detail and here's master, and it's kind of split it out so that you can see that. And in a hamburger menu, this would give you the basic ability to see that hamburger menu or that overflow menu out of the box when they first launch the application, which is not the experience we're looking for. We want master full screen, tap in to get the detail full screen. So that's kind of what I want to talk about real quick here. I would love to see this as a property that's available off of the master detail page that somehow says the same thing and have it work the same or similar ways. Now, Android's a different story because over in Android land, they made the decision for master detail to implement with the flyout control, drawer control. And there, if you go into Xamarin Studio, if you go into Android Studio and you build a master detail application, it doesn't build the template, doesn't build the same way. It doesn't necessarily use the flyout drawer. And so within that, I think that was probably something that they did in order to port this easily. And I know I've talked to like Jason Smith on Twitter before, and he definitely said in a tweet that this came down to just the easiness of porting this over to get this functionality out of the box. But I really think that this is the missing functionality. And to me, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to write Microsoft Outlook in Xamarin Forms. And I think the whole point of Xamarin Forms 4, as Dave has been showing off, Dave over in the Xamarin team has been showing off the visual designs and stuff, is to say Xamarin Forms is powerful enough that you can build these kind of enterprise applications. So I think this is just a pretty easy thing. And of course, you could post a bunch of stuff about custom renders. I get it, but I don't want to have to take that for every single one. The whole goal of Xamarin Forms, I think with the 1,000 little cuts that Dave has talked about over the last years, is just trying to make it so we don't have to do so many custom renderers. And it'd be wonderful, especially when you're trying to put out a lot of different enterprise applications, if you don't have to write all those custom renderers. If we can somehow get it down to the point where the functionality out of the box is pretty good and you only have to use a custom renderer in very small cases. And for the most part, Xamarin Forms has done that. If you look at the differences between 2 and 4, if you look, just say, okay, here's Xamarin Forms 1, which you couldn't do anything. You couldn't even change the font color. And you look at 1.3.1 that gave you the ability to actually build an app. Then you look at 2, and that was another just massive change. And then 2.5 came out, and that added even more functionality, kind of fixed the whole way of you do on platforms and stuff like that. Then we had 3 come out, and 3 added just a ton of really nice little tiny fixes. And all the releases from 3 all the way up to 3.6 even were, 3.6 gave us the visual NuGet package, which is just amazing to use the material design stuff. And if you can see here, I have it set in here. It's a really great piece of functionality, and it solves a lot of those problems of having to do on platform for your spacing and stuff like that between labels, because you get it looking great in iOS and then you run an Android and it looks like garbage. The visual NuGet package, if you haven't looked into the visual material design NuGet package, please go look at that, because that's going to save you so much time, and it looks pretty darn good. It's pretty easy to deal with. So they're making leads and bounds, and so I don't want to turn this into a bitch session where I'm saying that don't use Xamarin Forms. It's just this is painful, and you can see how quickly I did it in native. And I always make the argument that if you have 2 really good native people, they can spit out native applications pretty fast. I'm not saying fastest forms, but it's pretty close. If they really know Xcode, they really know Interface Builder well, and they know Xamarin well, you can spit out applications really, really, really fast natively. You add a framework like MVVM Cross or MVVM Lite over on native land, and you're out to the races. And the same thing can go for just regular Xamarin. You add in Prism, where you build your own little lightweight MVVM framework, and it really does solve some of these problems. This is one of them it doesn't solve because Forms obviously hasn't implemented that particular method or this particular functionality. So I don't want to waste too much time more on this video, because I obviously want people to watch it, and if it's too long, people won't. But I'm really interested in the feedback on this, and really just sitting down with the Xamarin team and even the community to talk about, how do we make this so that the applications that run on phone and tablet have that same really great experience. Because that's what we're used to shipping, especially if you have a public app store app, is something that is universal and works natively, very similar to how the applications that you would normally see written in either native or in Xamarin native work. So this is Chris signing off. Thanks for watching this, and see you in the next video.